And for more on the latest on the upcoming APEC meetings, let's turn to Dr. Ruth Shapiro. She is the Chief Executive at the Center for Asian Philanthropy and Society. Thanks very much for joining us. We appreciate it. I want to begin with a rather broad, simple question. What do you think is at stake during this upcoming week of APEC?
Look, I'm an American who lives in Hong Kong and works on philanthropy, which means that I work on finding solutions to problems that we all care about.
Sure.
I think that President Biden and President Xi are also committed to solutions. So I'm thrilled that the two of them are meeting because I think we have so much more in common than what divides us. So I think that if they can find the humanity in both of them and connect as human beings, as people who care about the world, that can only be a good thing.
Yeah, so much more in common that divides us. That is a familiar refrain we've heard from both sides. China and the U.S. are really the global heavyweights when it comes to trade, producing a whopping 40% of goods and services. So when things go well, it's great for the global economy. And when there is tension that we have seen the last 5 years, the world feels it. How important is this Xi-Biden meeting?
Well, it's very important. I think that the world has sensed that the relationship has been on somewhat more precarious grounds over the past year or two, and we needed to put it back on track. And so I think there's of course, the best people to do that are the presidents of both places. And I think having lived in China and having lived in the United States, I am convinced that both of these guys really do care about not only their own citizenry, but the citizenry of the world. So I think that they can find solutions, and this is an opportunity to kind of let the situation thaw a little bit and work together.
Yeah, you know, when you talk about putting things back on track, there, of course, have been a number of high-level, high-profile U.S.-China meetings over the past 6 months, and I read a quote from one observer stating that the bar isn't set terribly high to proclaim a positive outcome from the meeting this week. Do you agree with that?
Yes. I think that if they only agree to talk more, that's a good thing. But there's so much more that can be done. So let's stop with the name calling. Let's stop with the frigid temperature and realize that there's a lot of work we can do together and do it.
Yeah, but there's a big election cycle coming up here in the United States. And of course, that's going to mean for a lot of candidates, a lot of China bashing moving forward. Now, Moody's this past week said it is prepared to downgrade the U.S. credit rating. At the same time, the dysfunction that is known as the U.S. House of Representatives here in Washington, D.C. is again off to a poor start in an effort to come to an agreement to fund the U.S. and keep its government up and running. Now, that deadline is November 17th. So a lot's going to go on this week. The same time, Biden is focusing his attention on APEC. How do you think that is going to affect Biden this week as he and Xi try to smooth out tensions?
Well, look, I am not a political pundit in the United States. I work on philanthropy. I work on solutions. But I think that both sides need to keep their eye on the prize. And the prize is the sustainability and well-being of the people in both China, the United States, and the planet at large. And there is name-calling, there is bashing in both places, and I think that President Xi and President Biden have the wherewithal to rise above it. They need to, and set a positive example for everyone else. And the time is now for that kind of leadership, and I hope they demonstrate it.
If you had to say one thing that you do expect to come out of the meeting between the two world leaders, what would it be? Because there's always a lot of talk about climate change.
Well, it's clearly an issue that we must work on. In fact, I'm here because there's a sideline conversation called the APEC Multi-Stakeholder Forum, put on by the Commonwealth Club and the World Affairs Council. And it's really talking about a just transition, being inclusive, being aligned. So there is so much more that we can do together than we can do apart. So I think just an agreement to continue to have dialogue, to work together, and to solve really these existential problems of climate change would be a great outcome, and one that's really not it's not a choice, it's a necessity. We have to come to such an agreement for the whole world's sake.
Well said, Dr. Shapiro. Thank you very much for your time and insight. Thanks again.
Thank you.